This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. We've got 2 rounds to go. Just 2 rounds remain in this season of the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. As we say hello, good evening, and welcome to Watkins Glen International for the penultimate round of the championship. In terms of the standings in the championship, Philippe Burr has the opportunity of winning the championship here today. He currently has a total of 410 points, concerned with Greg Zietz's 358. Andrew Picorio in 3rd place, Simon Edwards in 4th, and Brian Dewell rounds out your top 5. If your name is Greg Zietz, it's simple. You need to win today, and you also need to lead every single lap if you want to take that championship battle to the last race of the season, Watkins Glen International, in just a couple of weeks' time. And we are on board of him right now as he works himself on his qualifying lap here at Watkins Glen International. Will Vincent along with Gary Weaver. And Gary, it is time for Zietz to really step up here today. He won last time out. He got pole and won the race. He needs to do exactly the same here today. And hope Burr has his shoes.
Yeah, it's going to be the thing for that number 74, Greg Zietz. He's so far doing what appears to be a great qualifying run for the time being, but I did mention his winning last time out and qualifying on the pole. So with that history that he has here, this time on a newer tire model, we'll see if that is going to play into his advantage here as he rounds up the final 2 corners here.
Yep, 32 laps is going to be our race distance here today. We'll get those standings up on the top of your screen now. And actually, it's going to be on the left-hand side of your screen right about now. So we can see Iron Freighter provisional pole position, 125.952. Andrea Amon moves up into 2nd place. Past start-finish line for Greg Zietz. So 126.0, and that is only 3rd place then for Greg Zietz right now. What about Philippe Burr? He comes past the start-finish line, and Burr only 4th place there for Philippe Burr. So your championship rivals, 3rd and 4th place on the grid so far, with still more drivers to go. We're on board with Simon Edwards as he enters now the final corner on this racetrack. The right hand, you've got to be careful, of course, with that tyre barrier on the outside. 125.952 to beat. And, oh, he just gets there. Simon Edwards will move to the top of the timing stands.
My goodness, very, very close indeed. About, what is that, 3 thousandths, maybe, yeah, I believe that's about 3 1,000ths of a second, actually, between De Frita and Edwards. So Edwards coming in right at the last second, almost quite literally. So that is absolutely great time for that number 52.
Yeah, it is. So it's a 20-car field here today. 2 drivers have not set themselves a qualifying time. Arnaud Chabend as well as Hans Hoyer. So 18 drivers will have set a qualifying time, and we have got the play clock just ticking over to 0. Let's have a look at your track conditions here today. 24 degrees Celsius in the air, but 39 degrees Celsius on track. That's 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 52% race relative humidity, and we got some gusts of about 4 miles an hour right now. But let's run yourself then through your starting grid for this edition of the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulations. And it will be Simon Edwards then starting on pole position here today. He set the time late. He got it done by 0.003 of a second over Arjen de Freitas. Andre Amon in third place and Greg Zeet on the outside of row number 2. Philippe Leibert will start on the inside of that third row. Remember, Philippe wins here today. He's almost certainly going to win the championship, as there's the remainder of those results going up on your screen right now. As we said, 18 drivers set a qualifying time. 2 drivers didn't. Before we go green very quickly here, what do we need to look for at this racetrack, Gary?
Well, the thing is, I noticed that this is actually the Cup configuration and not the Boot or Classic configuration or even the Classic Boot configuration. So a little bit of a semi-familiar, in a sense, racetrack here, at least the grid, but as well as, well, it's a long track, it's very large, and with that pit exit just directly off of that final corner, we're going to have to be seeing a lot of drivers maybe watch out for that pit entry, because those barriers can be a little bit testy at times.
They can indeed. We're having a look from up above then. Our aerial coverage brought to you as ever by And Wern Design. And of course, a shout out to DES Simulation, the official title partner of the 2K World Cup. All drivers are on the grid. We are ready to go racing for 32 laps here today. Lights go on top of the iRacing gantry. The lights will go off on top of the iRacing gantry. The green flag is waving, and we are underway for 32 laps here around Watkins Glen International. As let's go in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Simon Edwards has got himself that lead through turn number 1, going very wide. As you see a lot of drivers doing here in this event here today. Behind, Philippe Leibert has already got himself past Greg Zeet. We're on board with Zeet right now in the number 74 car, but Leibert on the cleaner side of the racetrack there, Gary, got himself the early advantage.
I was just about to mention this as well. Side by side already, de Freitas going for the lead on the left-hand side. This is the main part of the track where you see everyone spread out, and the draft is very, very powerful here down that back straightaway. And then they just go right here into the bus stop chicane, and de Freitas cuts through the final corner, and that's definitely a little bit of a course cut, I believe, as he does have to give those positions away. But either way, he will fall back side by side with Leibert for the time being.
Yeah, it's not going to be as bad as a track like Donington Park here if you end up having to give a little bit of time up. But, of course, you run over the curbs too much at the bus stop chicane, you are going to both lose time and maybe get yourself a slow-down penalty. We'll go on board with Colin Van Ram then. At the end of lap number 1, he runs himself in 7th place on track as they all come past the start-finish line. Simon Edwards leads from Arjen de Freitas as is side by side again in towards turn number 1. This is good old-fashioned Skip Barber racing. You are flat out at this track. You are on throttle. I did test it once, about 80% of the lap here, Gary. So it's one of those cases that you've got to stay in the draft. You've got to work in the draft. And Greg Zeet has got himself past Philippe Leibert, and he's trying to put that pressure right now over Arjen de Freitas.
And Greg Zeet's trying to capitalize as much as possible, although Philippe Leibert got a little bit wiggly there on the exit of the SS, but he'll still have a little bit of the draft in front of him in form of de Freitas. And right when I say that, de Freitas moves right down to the right-hand side and again goes for the lead and makes that work already, quickly single file. And then, well, next thing you know, it's going to be side by side, so there's contact in, but, oh, just a little bit. They managed to keep going forward, however. Tran and Colin Van Ram in the 54, they both make contact a little bit in the chicane.
Yeah, and Tran's one of those drivers that we know is so good when it comes to oval racing. It, in some ways, because of how often you're flat out here, there's a little bit of oval racing feel here today as Colin Van Ram moves himself to the inside of Tran, gets that move scored complete. That moves Tran down into 8th place, and it moves Colin Van Ram up into 7th. You even got battling. Oh, an incident at the rear end of your field there. That is Ronan Griffin, who's had himself a moment. That's down at the second to last corner. There is corner numbers here, no corner names, but let's have a look at the replay then. Ronan Griffin, back end, just stepping out on him, and then he makes contact with Hans Hoyer.
Oh, crash off of turn number 1. Huge crash. Tran, I believe also the 54 again.
So there's Tran and Colin Van Ram. You're right, they're both involved in that one. Let's take it back a few moments as Tran, we're on the replay right now, Gary. What happened?
I'm looking at this as well. Looks like Van Ram got loose, and Tran as well. Both got loose, and I believe there's even more now. Okay, I was about to say there's more wrecking, and it's just an insane lap, but a lot of passing up front going on. Everyone is really setting off the red and green here on the timing screen for sure.
Yeah, there's a look there at Tran. Oh, you can see Colin Van Ram started off. He had the incident all by himself, getting loose in turn number 1, and then it was a pure sympathy spin by Tran as he had to slow down to avoid. And again, with the fact that you flat out so often here, you got to slow those cars down. These cars are, of course, pretty twitchy. They don't have the grip of slick tyres. They only have road spec tyres, shall we say. As we go back on board with Iron Freighter. Exit of the final corner towards turn number 1 is Don Parks. Has had an incident towards the rear of the field. That was a solo car spin though. We stay on board at Iron Freighter in towards turn number 1. Greg Ziegler, fastest lap of the day out front, although Arno Chabens just goes a little bit faster. 125.719, and we're now on lap number 4 of 32 here.
I'm just looking here at the positioning of, well, specifically two of these drivers. Greg Zietz in the first place position, Philippe Lebert in 5th. A little bit of a ways back, but, well, that battle for first place is again heating up. I feel like De Frito is going to be using this back straightaway and the exit of the S's to much of his advantage, because every time we see him around here, he always gets the lead on the entry to the bus stop.
He does, and he's also going around the long way as well, so that's one of the things that's worth noting. You get the overspeed, you can clear the driver on the outside line of the S's by the time you get into the bus stop chicane here, as we now check in with Simon Edwards. He started on pole position in that number 52 car. However, he's not doing much right now. He's running in 3rd place. He's got Greg Zietz ahead of him. Sasha Gore, though, is 4 tenths of a second behind as they work themselves now down in towards the final corner. By the way, live timing and scoring is available. Visit raceweb.tv/timing for that one, as on the exit of the final corner, Edwards looks to the low side. Edwards looks to the high side. Edwards can't do anything in 3rd place.
Edwards is just kind of hovering there now at this point. Doesn't really have much to do, but at the same time, he's, well, just kind of stuck here. He does have Sasha Gore right behind him. He's got both Zietz and De Frito, so he's got essentially 2 lanes worth of slipstream here if needed, but he's going to make his own little lane there on the first half of the S's and not even use any of that. But it looks like he'll follow De Frito here on the, follow Zietz here on the outer side, unless he might make it 3 wide. There is space on the back straightaway, 3 wide, and this is going to be interesting, but 2 wide actually very quickly. So both drivers managed to pass, and still Greg Zietz actually manages to get by. Simon Edwards manages to get back up to 2nd. De Frito kind of just hung out there on the right-hand side. Yep,
De Frito was just like, you know what, I'm going to stay where I am for the time being. Let's check in, though, with Philippe Lebert. As it stands in the championship, Lebert and Zietz, this championship battle is likely to go down to the final race of the season. We say likely, of course, because of the fact that there are drop weeks in play in the 2K World Cup, so that will change the picture depending on how these drivers finish. But Philippe Lebert currently runs in 5th place, and he's doing the whole thing of just staying in the tow, staying in the mix right now, Gary. He's not looking to move forward yet until we get to pit stops.
Yeah, it's definitely a good strategy as well for Lebert. Just sit back, let everything happen out in front of you, and don't really make any unnecessary moves as quickly as possible. So he's definitely doing a good job. He's still managing to hang on with Sasha Gore. Even Sasha Gore in 4th place is still just hanging back, letting these 3 essentially battle out in front of him. So very, very interesting with these drivers as, oh man, Simon Edwards a little bit sideways there on the exit. He'll make his way around the long side on the left-hand side off of the S's down the back straightaway.
He does. There is Simon Edwards. You see him often as well on Monday Night Skippies here on RaceSpot TV. Simon Edwards gets himself past and up into first position. That moves Greg Zietz down into second. Arjen de Freitas into third. Sasha Gore right now runs in fourth place. We've got a car off. That is Chris Malcolm there. Big issues there for the Positive Sim Racing number 8 car. Replay up on screens right now. Is this just going to be a hardware issue, or does he get tagged? Hardware issue there for him, and yep, into the wall. And that Universidad Isabella 1 Positive Sim Racing car out of the event as a consequence of that. So Malcolm is one of 2 retirees now, as well as Ronan Griffin, who are out of this event. As we're just going to go and check back in on de Freitas. Let's check back in on de Freitas here, Gary.
Well, he's back in third now, so nothing really, not too different, but at the same time, it's a little bit of a change as well. These 3 have just been trading the first place back and forth every few laps, so not even every few laps, just every lap at this point. So we still have Gorl and Leibert just sitting back watching, and then here comes Zietz on the left-hand side rather, onto the back straightaway. The same thing that Simon Edwards is doing, but de Freitas may have a little bit of an advantage. No, not enough actually. So he might actually be choosing to lay back just a little bit as well. I did see the speed go down. So de Freitas also just letting this happen in front of him.
Yeah, indeed, as there is Arjen de Freitas. You might have just heard RaceSpot Cat there in the background, or RaceSpot Cat 1.0 anyway, as Arjen de Freitas then just keeping it with Simon Edwards for the time being. Mike McCormick then is a little bit further back, but he's side by side with Arnaud Chabens as they head themselves now down towards the second to last corner. So even outside of your top couple of drivers, you have still got some good battles going on as we go on board with Mike McCormick for just a moment then in the number 68 car, running in the 8th position, and he's ahead of Arnold Chabens in the double 8 car, the 88, as they come past the start finish line to put lap number 7 in the books as Greg Zietz sets the fastest lap of the day so far.
So far, so good for Greg Zietz, and something I noticed from Simon Edwards, he keeps breaking the draft on the front straightaway, not really letting anybody get an advantage, but also putting himself at disadvantage. But it might play off later on, and well, that later on in this case could be the back straightaway, because again, the same passive left-hand side, we're going to be seeing this a lot for sure. If we haven't already, well, I'm pretty sure that we'll see this a lot more throughout the second portion of this race after pit stops.
It's Drafest City here today in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. We go on board quickly with Andrew Vicorio in the number 53 car. He was side by side a moment ago with Mike McCormick. However, wasn't able to get the pass done. That was battle going on for 8th place on trackers. Even at the rear of the field, Enzo Cantor and Don Parks, they are scrapping it out for position. Enzo Cantor has had a drive-through penalty here today. That's why he's so far down the field, but he's now ahead of Don Parks in the 303 car.
That's battle for 15th as well. So Enzo Cantor just trying to recover in some way, maybe just trying to save fuel at the same time. But at this point, it's better off just riding behind and maybe trying to save a little bit of fuel for a little bit later on. But other than that, he's doing pretty well for the time being, save for that drive-through penalty. But now we do have essentially a little bit of an example of how long it takes to go straight down pit lane, which is apparently, from what I'm seeing, 21.6 seconds. Yeah,
and of course, then you got to add the fuel onto that, and we know the fuel stops can be anywhere between about 10 seconds and 14 seconds here. Zietz, Edwards, side by side, in towards the bus stop chicane, the inner loop, if you want to give it its official name. But it's the bus stop chicane for us. We're going to call it that anyway today. That's behind Mike McCormick and Arnaud Chabens. Again, go side by side. That time, Arnaud is able to get ahead. Simon Edwards sticking in that second place right now as they work themselves toward the second to last corner once again. I did joke earlier there is no real corner names at this racetrack. Well, there is the inner loop and outer loop, if you really want to be pedantic about it, of course, and heel and toe, but we're not running the boot layout here today. But Simon Edwards probably is enjoying this NASCAR-esque layout. Of course, it's what they use in the Monster Energy Cup Series. When IndyCar came here, of course, they used to run on the full boot layout, the same way that IMSA did.
I personally love the Cup configuration because, well, I don't see why Simon Edwards went. That SS is... goodness gracious. The SS, I'm going to pause there, is very interesting, as well as the exit and the back straightaway. It gives you a lot of time to gain a little bit of momentum there with the slipstream. It's a little bit different because the Cup cars are, of course, very much faster, so you have to slow down in the SS. But somebody who won't be slowing down anytime soon is Aaron DeFrita, who might back off. No, he'll actually make it 3 wide and maybe 4 wide. But Philippe Lebert has actually caught up to this battle here and decides to definitely make the wise choice of backing off as Edwards tries to hang on the right-hand side, and he'll actually get the lead and retain that off of the bus stop. So that was absolutely impressive by Simon Edwards.
Great job there by Edwards in the number 52 car. He is kind of privateer amongst all of these teams of really well-established teams. Go on board with Greg Zeet. So falling down into 3rd place right now. He's got to be careful because right behind him now is Philippe Lebert. Zeet runs in 3rd place. Lebert runs in 4th place. They'll complete lap number 10 of 32 this time around as they'll come past the stripe here. And let's just have a look at them as they do so. Simon Edwards leads away by 33 1,000ths of a second over Aaron DeFreitas. I see a car on pit road already. That's Andrew Picorio making his first pit stop of the day.
And lap number 11 for the number 53 machine. 10 laps in as well for his run. So far, so good, apparently. Pit speed as well. You have to come from pretty much maybe about 90 or so miles an hour from the final corner. Slow down all the way to 45 for that pit road entry. But right now for the lead, it's still, near contact. And somehow that was almost a miscommunication. We're maybe going 4 wide down the back straightaway. This is going to be interesting.
Philippe Lebert from 4th to 2nd there in the space of a couple of 100 yards. And he almost got Simon Edwards as well. He was just running the ultra inside line. But Edwards is loving this because as everyone starts to scrap it out behind him, he has a good chance to start pulling away potentially. And Simon Edwards is 4 tenths to a second ahead of Philippe Lebert right now as they head themselves down the back straightaway. But 4 wide is now our starting point here at Watkins.
Oh my, I knew the track was wide. I didn't think it was that wide. So that is that's definitely a first if I ever seen one. That's, again, impressive for Simon Edwards. He's just on a roll here so far tonight. Okay, and maybe I shouldn't have said that because he almost got the wall off the final corner, but he still hung on. So far so good. And these 4 are just really enjoying this, I am sure. I'm pretty sure Sasha Grola is also enjoying this, but he's definitely not going to... I'm pretty sure that 17 is not going to join in on this anytime soon. Just lay back and just let things happen.
Yeah, and of course, they do need to get a bit more bunched together when they come on towards pit road, but you're right. What you said earlier about the fact that these drivers having to slow down from 90 to about 45... It's a little bit harder than you think, of course, and these get Barber machines. But it's not as bad as, for example, when you go to circuits while Francorchamps, where the pit road speed limit is 37 miles an hour, as Lebert does take the race lead there, getting himself ahead of Simon Edwards, as does Greg Zeet. So now, championship rivals running number 1 and running number 2 in this event.
Simon Edwards quickly shoved out to 3rd place, but... yeah, that pit speed difference is definitely key, and I should double check with the speed here in the final corner to see how that plays out, because like you mentioned right here, well, this is the part where you have to slow down just a little bit, and then just like that, back on the throttle. So it's a tricky corner in a sense. You're not sure if you're supposed to slow down or what, but right here, 75 miles an hour in your top 3 in a pit road.
Yep, so first pit stop of the day then, and we've got yourself Philippe Lebert, Greg Zeet, and Simon Edwards all on pit road this time around as they'll make that journey down pit road at 45 miles an hour. we're riding on board with Greg Zeitz coming on towards pit road. Now, key question here, Gary, is anyone going to try and do the undercut here?
And probably I was waiting to see where Sam Edwards' pit road was, and multiple drivers also on pit road. As for the undercut, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be definitely a very interesting decision to see. So, well, Philippe Lebert first off, and I don't believe anyone has really done an undercut, although Andrew Picorio may have, as he got 11, but no, just about 12 seconds actually on pit road, as opposed to everyone else with 14 and a half.
Yeah, and the thing that's worth noting is Philippe Lebert was absolutely astonishingly quick coming on towards pit road. He now has a 1.2 second advantage over Greg Zeitz, and well, for Philippe Lebert, he's got a little bit, he's got a driver ahead of him. That's not lap traffic. That's actually Anthony Catt in the number 25 car, who you also see on Club UK and Ireland Monday Night Skippies here on RaceSpot TV. But if Philippe Lebert can catch Anthony Catt, he might be able to just pull away a tiny bit here from Greg Zeitz, but he's got to do that in the next lap or so.
It's going to be key on when to pit. We have Aaron DeFrita, Chabanez, and McCormick all on pit road. I'm not sure about the 54. In fact, I'll actually just get around to the final corner, and we'll see. No, he decides to, go to pit road, actually. So that wide turn had it for a second. So now it's going to be Sasha Goral and Eamon that have yet to go to pit road, as well as Anthony Catt, who decides to stay out this time around. So for Lebert and Zeitz, they're still essentially in a 1-2 style position, but Zeitz has a little bit of ground to make up with Lebert.
Don't forget that Anthony Catt pitted early after an incident, so that's what the difference is with him. Now, Arian De Freitas gets out ahead of Philippe Lebert. We just need to get that gap to normalise, but it's going to be about 1.2 seconds faster. Is Arian De Freitas. Actually, look at his pit stop. It was 10.6 seconds. That was 3.5 seconds faster than Philippe Lebert. But it's worth noting that De Freitas hasn't got a 3.5 second lead.
And De Freitas does not have that lead at all, unfortunately. He does have a little sort of an advantage in a sense, but Anthony Catt, however, may put that advantage to an end, as looks like Andrea Eamon goes to pit road. That leaves Sasha Goral with the final choice to go to pit road, as 17 takes over the lead for the time being. So now with Freitas, he does have that advantage in a sense, but he's also got Anthony Catt right behind him. Those two go side by side, and the two in the 74 stay single file. Those two could catch up very, very quickly.
Yeah, and well, there we are. We're having a look at Arian De Freitas as he comes past the start-finish line. Sasha Goyle, it doesn't come on towards pit road, but Andrea Eamon does in the number 9 car then. So, putting in the fuel, 15.8 seconds, and out and away he will go back out onto track, and he comes out well behind this leading group. So, De Freitas has the technical lead right now by 4 tenths per second over Anthony Catt. Catt is due on pit road in the next couple of laps. Philippe Lebert runs in 4th place, and Greg Zeitz is right behind him and side by side as they head themselves now towards the inner loop once again. And there is Greg Zeitz, and he's going to get himself the pass complete. Pretty easy there over Philippe Lebert.
That was at the same time that Anthony Catt passed De Freitas as well, so very interesting timing. So that we're going to be seeing a lot more of those side-by-side passes off of the S's down the back straightaway again, now that everyone has gotten sorted out, as Sasha Goral goes to pit road finally to make that pit stop that is much needed. 15 laps into that run as well.
Yeah, as there's a look there from the rear of Greg Zeitz. They head themselves down towards that second to last corner once again. There is Arian De Freitas back behind Anthony Catt. So Catt is putting himself into this battle right now, even though he's not going to be a long-term part of it. Arian De Freitas down on the inside line once again, and that is actually going to be for the race lead, because Sasha Goyle is now on pit road.
A 16.5 second pit stop from I'm seeing 40.7 seconds on pit road, and it's a battle side by side for a quick moment, actually, as it looks like Picario almost had that position, went wide, and then that gave Sasha Gorel the 7th place position. But now it's going to be Lebert and Zeet side by side. And right when I say that, I think Lebert decided to say, well, you know what? I know I can make the run, but I'm going to back off here and just save for the time being.
Yeah, keeping it there with De Freitas. Let's show you your top 8 then along the bottom of your screen right now. Arjen De Freitas leads away by 5/10 of a second over Anthony Cat. Greg Zeet in 3rd place. Philippe Lebert in 4th. Simon Edwards in 5th. Andrea Amon in 6th place. Sasha Goyle and Andrew Picario round out your top 8 here in upstate New York, Watkins Glen International. Just having a look a little bit further down, we have got a battle going on here between Hans Hoyer in 12th place and Colin Van Ram in 13th.
It'll be the first time that these two have been battling. They've been battling pretty much very quietly in a sense. They've been just sticking with each other. So they did make a little bit of contact here in this second to final corner. But other than that, nothing really too bad for those two drivers. So it's very good to see that these two are still managing to run and continue this race for them as they're now battling for 12th and 13th respectively, where the 54 and 23 currently sit.
Yeah, we just saw the pass being made there, and the gap now between the two of them is 3 tenths of a second to the advantage of Colin Van Ram. Let's go back though. Oh, we go 3 wide here again, and it's getting close. They're thinking about 4 wide. Philippe Lebert was thinking, can I make it 4 wide? He decides not to. As business begins to pick up here at Watkins Glen International. We're now into the second half of this motor race, and Lebert in that 4th place was having a look, but they went 3 wide, and Greg Zeet was the driver who was able to get himself the benefit of that one. Of course, if Greg Zeet does win here today, we are going to be talking about a championship showdown at Suzuka. And even though Lebert is technically in the driver's seat, what we do know about this track from years previous is that anything can happen in those last couple of laps.
Anything can happen indeed. It's been relatively quiet for the most part. A few spins. There goes Cat to pit road a little bit later on, coming to lap number 18. So finally having to relent is that number 25 machine. But right now that'll leave a 4-car battle, just like we've seen earlier on.
4 cars all going to come past you in the blink of an eye as they work themselves. Well, they're going to work somewhere on track. Our cameraman probably just decided to go and get himself a hot dog here at Watkins Glen International, but there we are as the drivers head themselves now onto the back straightaway once again. There we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, all within a second of each other. As behind, there's 5th place driver Sasha Gola, Andrea Amon in 6th place, but they're going close again in towards the bus stop, and this time De Freitas is to the front.
Very interesting again to see De Freitas go back up front in the same area that he's made multiple passes before. So definitely a little very close moment even between that two's right front tire and the left rear tire of De Freitas, and somehow, some way, they still managed to keep going. And after all this, it's still a 4-car battle. We got 5th place of Sasha Gorel a little ways back, so it's definitely going to be 4 cars for the time being, unless they all continue to keep battling side by side.
Yeah, having a look at a replay here of Hans Hoyer, it looked a little bit strange on our cameras, but actually, no, it wasn't that bad. He just got passed by Colin Van Ram, and that was battle for 12th place on track, as cameraman's now getting himself a milkshake by the looks of it as well. But De Freitas, Philippe Lebert, they're separated now by 1/3 of a second. We're past halfway here in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. And let's bring you up to date with your track conditions. Well, it's actually got a little bit cooler here during this race. It was at a high point of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, Gary. It's come down by 5 degrees as Lebert and De Freitas go for the race lead.
And just like that, De Freitas will stay right just behind that number 2 of Lebert for the time being again. But yeah, the air temperatures went up as well, a couple degrees, 75 in Fahrenheit. So it's definitely fluctuating just a little bit, and that may be why we're seeing a little bit of more side-by-side action, but as well as the occasional cloud cover that we've had earlier on. It could be cooling the track as well.
Yeah, it is. And you can see actually that you've got your top 4 drivers, but it's not a million miles away. It's Sasha Goyle and Andrea Amon right now. And we've often seen the last couple of laps of these races, Gary, if your top 4 end up going side by side for long periods of time, you might well end up in a situation where 5th, 6th and 7th places might actually come back into play.
And if they do, again, continue battling, but as well as the slipstream playing into effect, because Sasha Goyle actually did his way up to 4th place. Andrea Amon in 5th. I believe that was from, well, actually, DeFrida went to pit road. I was wondering what happened, and, well, there's my question answered.
Indeed, there is DeFrida doing himself service number 2 here today in the speedcafe.com Evolution Racing Team car, out and away, 14.2 seconds here. So I was having a look at the amount of laps that these people have been able to do in this event, and it did seem to be that some people might have enough fuel to barely do a 1 second, but a 1-stopper. But actually, the more I think about it, it is going to be 2 pit stops to the end here, and this second pit stop is going to be so crucial as we see Simon Edwards actually completely staying out of the way of the slipstream of Labour, Zeet and Edwards. It's also worth noting, of course, that the pit time that last time around for Aaron DeFreitas was longer because he did a short stop earlier on in this event, as we stay on board with Simon Edwards.
It's understandable to see what DeFreitas can do later on, but right now that may help him out in the long run, because we did see someone go at 15 laps at most, and well, with this track being 32 laps, as well as having to take 1 pit stop and another one essentially later on, it's a very good advantage for that 86.
It is, as we again get ourselves a little bit of side-by-side as they work themselves up the hill here at Watkins Glen. You've got yourself Greg Zeitz with Philippe Labour. They are side-by-side. They were side-by-side. They decided to not do anything as we have a look there from the overhead camera down in towards the bus stop. The right, the left, and the right again. And the thing we haven't actually talked about is it's that first corner that is so important in the bus stop, because get that wrong and you're missing 4 apexes. Get it right, it makes it really easy to carry momentum through the carousel.
And it's so easy to carry all that momentum when you get it right. When you get it wrong, well, many things happen, I believe. I can say off the top of my head, you either clip the grass or you clip that guardrail that just pokes out on the right-hand side if you take that corner just a little bit too much. And next thing you know, your race is pretty much done either way, whether you hit the grass or the guardrail. So luckily, we haven't seen any example of that. So everyone managing that bus stop chicane very, very well for the time being.
Yeah, drivers in towards turn number 1 again as they just work themselves through that first right hand. You can see they always go off the track as well. It's the faster way around here, and of course, there is no penalties for doing so, which is why everyone does it so often. And it's one of those things that, on one hand, I completely hate the way they do it in Britain, where you've got to stay within the white lines. But in some ways, I mean, it's turn 1 at Watkins Glen and turn 19 at Circuit of the Americas. I think people are just a little bit too liberal with.
And just a little bit. Sometimes it is good to carry that speed out, and well, that's why the runoff is there, and there isn't any grass for a reason, so might as well use any advantage that you can get.
That's behind. Here's Andrew Picorio in the number 53 PKE machine. It's an RKE machine. I don't know when I said PKE. It's RKE sim racing car, as he's the hometown hero here today. Number 53 car, Club New York, and of course we're only a couple of months away from the 10th iRacing World Cup, and that's going to be fun to watch. You'll catch that across the iRacing esports networks as we enter the fall in a couple of months' time, and it's going to be great. Of course, the DH versus Finland, as we see on pit road. Andrew Picorio again. You know, only 2 teams have ever won the World Cup of iRacing, Gary, and they are Club Finland and Club DH.
Reminds me, I believe it was a while back, maybe a couple years ago, maybe more than that, where it was Finland that won at the Daytona Road Course. I believe I was on for that as well, so that was definitely very cool to see Finland and, oh goodness, well, it was very cool seeing Finland win in that group burnout, but other than that, that lead continues to battle on, and I'm seeing a little bit of a change up here, actually, with them starting to make a pass on the right-hand side on the exit of the S's instead of the left-hand side.
Getting a little bit more aggressive into the second half of this motor race. Iron Freighter, by the way, now all the way down in 10th place after his pit stop. I am wondering, we do expect to see everyone on pit road again, we think, although I have seen pit stints of about 14-15 laps here, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not these guys will do a second pit stop. We are completing the end of lap number 23 of 32 here at Watkins Glen International. We're on board with Simon Edwards as they come down in towards the final corner, and no one in your top three coming on towards pit road this time by, but Simon Edwards is thinking about maybe going for a pass in towards turn number 1 this time.
I don't believe so. He's been doing that for pretty much the entire race, though, just breaking the draft, not using as much fuel as necessary. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's even laying off the throttle a little bit just to save that much more.
Well, on board with Simon Edwards as they work themselves up the hill. Greg Zietz and Philippe Leber, they are 2-1 in the championship. They are running 1-2 right now, although Philippe Leber looking to the outside as they head themselves down in towards the bus stop chicane. And of course, it's worth noting that there are bonus points on offer in the 2K World Cup for leading laps. So that's the reason why both Leber and Greg Zietz are wanting to run this one at the front here, Gary, especially now they're down to a 3-car pack. Makes it safer, but also it's some easy points to help them in terms of the championship.
Especially for Greg Zietz, he is looking for any and every single lap possible that he can lead, so he definitely does need that. And right here with this momentum, he backed off just a little bit, actually. But with that momentum down that short straightaway, which pretty much is a short straightaway, just a little bit shorter than the back straight, but other than that, with that momentum, he does back off a little bit, but he can possibly make a move down to the left-hand side on that corner entry and set himself up for another pass instead of just waiting until the exit of the S's.
Andre Amon on pit road for the second time today in the TT Racing car, and that implies that we're going to see the other TT Racing cars on pit road in just a couple of moments' time. There is your top three again, working themselves up the hill. This time by, we're going to go on board with Greg Zietz as we can, look there on the inside line. Going to get that pass complete over Philippe Leber, but hello, Simon Edwards looking through the middle then. 3 wide, you're in the middle, and well, doing a better job than Takuma Sato could do earlier on at Pocono there. Simon Edwards running that middle line, but can't get the pass complete.
And he'll just, oh my gosh. Well, I was about to say he'll just have Leber on the right-hand side on the quarter panel, or not even the quarter panel, but the rear wheel, but that was probably the closest that we've seen anybody here, aside from that 4 wide earlier on. Yeah,
as very close then. Again, as you get closer to pit stops, you are going to want to jostle position. You don't want to be the second car in line because you not only got to look at the driver ahead of you, you've also got to look in your rear view mirror as 1, 2, 3 on towards pit road again at exactly the same time.
And again, Sasha Grohl decides to stay out for the time being. Might be able to make it to the end, maybe with 5 laps to go, but that's going to be close for that 17 if that's the case.
They all come in then. It's going to be a case of who can get off a pit road the fastest here. Greg Zietz, Philippe Leber, Simon Edwards, and Simon Edwards was pretty much alongside Greg Zietz as they came on towards pit road. Out of the way first will be Greg Zietz. Then it's going to be Philippe Leber going around the outside of Simon Edwards as they exited pit lane. Simon Edwards, 3rd place. I want to see that one again on board of Philippe Leber because he was able to just drive around Simon Edwards. They're past the commit cone, so the thing for Simon Edwards is being pole position here you actually do get a tiny bit of a disadvantage because other people are up to speed by the time you get going into that left hand on the inside of, sorry, right hand on the inside of turn number 1.
There's also that little bit of an advantage, though, is that you don't have to stay slowed down to that pitch speed limit, but that you could accelerate as quickly as possible a little bit more often with that pole position pit box. But unfortunately, it just wasn't really enough time because that speed difference still plays key if you just have a little bit of a longer pit stop.
6.5 laps to go, and it is Sasha Goal leading the way from Neil Kemp. Philippe Leber third and Greg Zietz in fourth. However, we do expect to see Sasha Goal and also Neil Kemp on pit road. In fact, Neil Kemp is on pit road right now.
Yeah, 14 laps on Neil Kemp's run that he had for the time being. Second place, not too bad, 11 positions up, so not too bad for a starting position at 13 for the 81 machine. I'll just come in and quickly get back going as quickly as possible. Very smooth pit entry as well. So with this, could be seeing a three-way battle if, and possibly one Sasha Goral. Ooh, Leber had a very wide exit and cut through the grass there off of turn number 1. But with Sasha Goral possibly going to pit road here in the next couple of laps or so, could be seeing a 3-car battle for the lead as Zietz moves his way down to the inside lane and it gets by Leber just like that.
Yep, and well, they've got 6 tenths to a second right now, these two drivers, the two TT Racing drivers, over Simon Edwards. And normally, Gary, you'd expect to see TT Racing working together. But in this circumstance, if you're Philippe Leber, you kind of want to have Simon Edwards there to put a position in best case scenario between yourself and Greg Zietz, and that could potentially wrap up the championship. So Leber does not want Simon Edwards to go anywhere right now.
I'm pretty sure Leber even wants pretty much Simon Edwards to be between him and Greg Zietz, although not exactly in this specific order, preferably first for Leber and then separating himself from Zietz in second and third. So hopefully that could be the case, but only time will tell as Simon Edwards peeks his way down to the right-hand side again in the middle of the front straightaway, just like he's been doing all race. And of course, kind of a interesting thing as well. He doesn't want to speed himself up too much so that he ends up overshooting the corner, not just to save fuel.
Yeah, you've got to be careful here. And of course, there are incident limits, of course, at all 2K events, as we see Philippe Leber closing up as they work up the S's, and Leber immediately he's going to try and go to the inside line, gets it done. And if you're Greg Zietz at this point, you're thinking, okay, I didn't lead the lap. So I led the lap, I got the point potentially for leading the lap, but you don't necessarily need to lead up the hill. And letting him go early will give him a potential opportunity on the back straightaway. And if you're Greg Zietz at this point, you're thinking, Gary, okay, is there a chance I can lead coming to the white flag, lose a position, and gain it back before the end of the lap? You've got to try that one out.
Now with this stretch here, he's going to have to practice that move down to the left-hand side right here. Although he was a bit too far back, he does have the momentum to close up that gap, but just needs to be a little bit closer in that case. Even right here, it could be possible if he's close enough, but at the same time, you have pretty much those two opportunities, and well, if you're somehow lucky enough, you have this stretch between the final corner and down to the start-finish line. So multiple opportunities for Zietz to get that lead back, and well, he'll have that opportunity now. Sasha Goral just exits pit road.
Yeah, and actually a pretty good
This could be
pit
in
stop.
the middle of this.
Yeah, this is great run here by Sasha Goal. He's going to potentially go, he is going to go right into the middle of this. There we are then. Sasha Goal in the number 17 car side by side right now with Greg Zietz. They work themselves up the hill. And Sasha, is he going to have the momentum to try and make this 3 wides? They hit themselves now down the back straight away again. Philippe Leber going ultra defensive on the inside line that time around. Sasha Goal is on the outside. They go back to 2 wide racing. But Sasha's now on this mix as well. That's going to be interesting with just 3 laps to go. And part of the reason why, 8.1 second pit stop there for the Simatop car.
A very quick pit stop. Definitely gas and go was just needed. Nothing more, nothing less. And of course, it was just pretty much any amount to get that 17 to the end. Well, he's got the amount needed. Now he just needs to get back into this lead battle, which was absolutely impressive. I didn't think that Sasha Girl would actually get that, but with the pit entry being a much tighter corner, that puts Sasha Girl directly in the middle of that battle, quite literally as well.
Yeah, as we've got ourselves now just 3 laps of this race to go. And as I said earlier, you've got to be thinking about the pack who run in P number 5 and 6. And I say 5 and 6, they're not actually in a pack anymore. But you've got Andrea Amon, who's 2.2 seconds back from this lead gaggle. Ian DeFreitas is 1.2 seconds further back. There's a difference on screen between P1 and P5. That is not a lot at all, as again, they're going to get very feisty as they work themselves down the back straight away.
Sasha Girl tried to make it snap wide to go 3 wide, but that almost worked. Now it's actually going to be 3 wide, only for a moment, however, because someone's going to have to back off. It might be Zeitz. No, it's actually Sasha Girl that backs off, and well, just like that, they immediately go back single file as if that hasn't even happened yet.
Yep, so that was a bit of an anticlimactic moment, but we still got 2.5 laps of this race to go. It's worth noting that Sasha Girl is currently tied for 6th place in the championship with Tran Turan, and Tran's running in the 11th place on track right now. It's also worth noting that Brian Duell isn't taking part in this event today, so it's a good chance for Sasha Girl to get himself a good points haul to move him into the top 5 of the championship if he can stay in the top 4. So even though Sasha Girl isn't mathematically in the chance of winning the championship, he still wants to try and get into the top 5 in the championship. 1, 2, 3, 4, all coming past the line. Andrea Amon gained about half a second, though, over those 2 drivers that last time by. If you're Leigh Burr, do you manage the pace, or do you just start going for it?
That depends on how much fuel, and if that, well, with this case, you're pretty much fine, so I'd say go for it, because you're going to have, for example, like right here, Greg Zeitz making the pass on the left-hand side down the back straightaway, Sasha Girl just lurking behind, Simon Edwards literally lurking behind if anything happens, and, well, for Leber, if he can just get the corner of Zeitz, which he doesn't, well, that's the time where you have to go for it pretty much right now for that number 2 machine.
A lap and a half to go here at Watkins Glen International. We have seen some crazy finishes to this race before, and we're setting ourselves up potentially for another one here today. There are 4 drivers easily in the shot of winning this race. They are separated by 0.5 of a second. They are Greg Zeitz, Philippe Leber, Sasha Girl, and Simon Edwards. They work themselves now down towards the final corner. And ladies and gentlemen, white flag is out. 1 more lap to go. This here, Gary, is when it's going to get crazy.
And Greg Zeitz moves down. Everyone is moving down to the same line. Simon Edwards making the move for 3rd place on the left-hand side on Sasha Girl. And Philippe Leber tried to make a move for 1st place, but did not have the momentum. And they still somehow managed to go single file as they head through the S's. And this is going to be the time for Leber to get the lead.
Up the hill they will come for the final time. Then here they will go on board with Philippe Leber. Greg Zeitz is 0.3 of a second ahead as they work through the S's, but that gap comes down pretty much instantaneously there. Here's Philippe Leber, 3 wide in towards the bus stop chicane. And it's Leber in the middle, but he's clear. He's got the inside line in towards the S's right now. So Leber leads the way over Sasha Girl and Greg Zeitz. The 2nd, 3rd, 4th place battle could still be decisive for the championship. We go on board with Greg Zeitz is in 3rd place right now. He needs to be 2nd place if he wants any chance of taking the championship fight to Suzuka in 2 weeks' time. Zeitz looking on the outside then as they come down in towards the 2nd to last corner. And Sasha Girl runs in 2nd place, but it's Philippe Leber who's got the race lead as they come down. Final corner for the final time. Philippe Leber will claim victory. It's going to be photo finish almost there between Sasha Girl and Simon Edwards. And actually, Greg Zeitz is 4th place. Leber is going to be champion because Greg Zeitz fell from 2nd to 4th place there at the end of this one, Philippe Leber is your winner. And unless my maths is incorrect, Philippe Leber is a 2K World Cup champion, Gary.
Simon Edwards coming in at the very last second to get that third place. A quite almost literal photo finish, half a car length between himself and Greg Zietz. And that is enough to be decisive, unfortunately, for Greg Zietz. Zietz almost had that as well with Sasha Goro, but I don't know exactly what happened if he got loose on the inside in that final corner, but he definitely did not have enough momentum, unfortunately, to get that exit that he needed.
Replay on board with Greg Zietz right now, and he was on the outside line into the second to last corner. He had himself, he's not the winner of this race. Let's get that one off the screen. There we are, on board with Greg Zietz. He has to take the very inside defensive line, and that just opened the outside up. You're going to see Simon Edwards coming alongside him. They come to the start-finish line, and Greg Zietz was just boxed in more than anything else. He couldn't go to the high side. He couldn't go anywhere further down the inside. He would have had no momentum. And let's get ourselves one more look, if we can, from our overhead camera. As you can see, Leber doing the wiggles, but behind, that's how close it was between Greg Zietz and Simon Edwards. They come past the start-finish line, about a quarter of a car length between them.
Greg Zietz, however, he did have amazing placement in those final two corners. I didn't think he would actually stick, but he just barely managed to get that pretty much the front half of his car just enough on the rear of the 17, just enough to know that the 17 knew he was there and to not come down. And luckily, that didn't end as worse as it could have. But Greg Zietz, unfortunately, still manages to finish fourth, but he did have amazing placement in that final corner. Yeah, there we are. That's a look as Greg Zietz crossed the start-finish line. It was actually about half a car length. That's just the momentum that Simon Edwards is having on that outside line. Zietz finishes fourth place, Edwards third, Sasha Goro in second, Philippe Leber in first. Let's have a look then for your final race results here from a fantastic penultimate round of the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. And Philippe Leber is your winner by a third of a second over Sasha Goro. Simon Edwards in third place, Greg Zietz in fourth, then Zietz finishing off the podium here. Hands the championship over to Philippe Leber with one round remaining in the series. Andrea Amon, fifth place. Ariane de Freitas never recovered after doing a short pit stop early and having to do the long one later on. Andrew Courier, seventh place. Neil Kemp in eighth. Arnaud Chamet in ninth place. And Tran rounds out your top 10. Enzo Cantor, 11th. Anthony Catt, 12th. Conor Van Ram, Hans Hoyer, Rob Adams, Mike McCormick, Don Parks, and John Morgan, Chris Malcolm, Ronan Griffin round out your field here today. As there is the moment that we see Philippe Leber crossing the start-finish line here in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulations. And let's have a chat with him now as well. Philippe, congratulations. What a race.
Oh, yeah. It was, well, I'm happy I won in the end because with 2 laps to go, it could have been anyone's race. It was a little boring in the middle part, but the last 5 laps or so were awesome.
Well, I mean, we've seen you be in both sides of these circumstances before, winning the race, but also being involved in the big incidents. How much was track placement important for you as you came down 5, then 4, then 3, then 2 laps to go?
Well, I just wanted to be sure I was not in 4th position. That's all I cared about. So I wanted to be in either 2 or 3, preferably 3. But in the end, I was 2nd, I think. I don't even remember. It was so hectic. And I think Sasha didn't get a good run. So otherwise, he would have been able to pass both of us, and he didn't. So, yeah, I'm happy.
As far as our maths goes, and you know how bad our maths is, you got the championship locked up with a round to go heading into Suzuka. Of course, that doesn't take into account potential bonus points, but it looked pretty close between you and Greg in that regards. But that takes a lot of pressure off for heading into Suzuka in a couple of weeks' time, most certainly, for you.
Yes, I'm happy that I'm not 100% sure that I have the championship in the bag, but it looks like it. So it's a little less pressure, so I'm going to try to win the last race. Very simple.
And before we let you go, Philippe, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you?
I want to give a shout out to my team because we have 3 cars in the top 5, and it's Andrea's first top 5 finish in the 2K, so well done to her. And also I want to thank our league sponsor, DES Simulation, for sponsoring us for the 2nd year in a row.
Yes, people.
Well, thank you very much then. That was Philippe Leber. Let's have a chat then to 3rd place driver, Simon Edwards. And well, Simon, we often talk to you on Monday nights, but you got a fantastic battle here today. You led a number of laps, you led at a number of points of the race, but at the very end, it was Philippe and Sasha just being able to get past you.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really know what to do at the end there. I didn't know if to attack or not, because I could see Sasha once we'd done our first pit stop that he could hold the lap time that the TT guys ahead of us could do with drafting, so I didn't want to interfere with that, and then I sort of got myself misplaced in 4th once Sasha came back out, so I didn't want to take a big risk, so I just snuck a place there at the end.
Snuck a place, of course. We've seen big tough racing in this type of race before. First thing, I'm sure you've got to be glad to come through the other side, but also being able to solidify that 3rd place a bit more in the championship.
Yeah, I didn't even... Am I 3rd?
You are.
Right,
you
yeah.
were 3rd.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, no, I might be able to do that. That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about $30 or something, isn't it?
Well, so long as you don't punt... because of the fact you didn't punt Greg Zeitz off, or no one else did, you actually finished ahead of him in the race, so you closed that gap a little bit. We're 2nd place in the championship. So heading into Suzuka, is it going to be a bit like Leber's mentality, just go for the victory and see what happens?
Well, I love Suzuka. I'm not sure I can win against this field, but I'll have a good go at it.
Well, before we let you go, Simon, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you?
I haven't got any sponsors, but I've got some new equipment coming that I'm really looking forward to, and that's the Simicube Pro, 2 Pro, and I'm going to be whooping all their bottoms with that, I think.
And just confirm, you are now 3rd place in the championship with 374 points. You are 1 point ahead of Andrew Pecoria.
Woo, that's good.
Yes.
That's good.
Simon Edwards, 3rd place here today. Greg Zeitz, 4th place. And Greg, you gave it everything, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. I was the unfortunate guy who was leading the last lap, and that never ends well.
Well, talk us through it, because you kind of had a bit of an advantage through the first pit stop. It was 4 of you as you came down to 5 laps to go. It looked good for you, but then that last lap, you just seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I tried a little bit of some chess moves that didn't really work out. I think I just ended up giving them more draft behind me. On going into the last lap, lifted a little bit just to try to not get them great runs. And I actually got a good run through there, but all it did, like I said, I think was extend the gap to the optimal for their draft.
And heading into Suzuka, it would be a mathematical miracle if you were to claim the championship now. But as you head in with the kind of the pressure of the championship moved off from your shoulders, is it just going to be a case of go out with a bang for the final race of the championship?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't even expect to be in 2nd right now, honestly. My first half of this year was just so bad. I think I was in 8th or 9th, and then the second half of the season happened, and I've had a pretty good run since then. So I'm actually shocked that I made it all the way up to 2nd. But yeah, I think, like you said, I think Philippe is essentially the de facto champion here.
Well, before I let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you, Greg?
My team, as usual, TT Racing, and you guys, and my wife Linda. I love bringing her up, and just really great racing all around with Sasha and Simon and Philippe. So it was a very fun race and very clean on everybody's part.
Well, thank you very much there, Greg Zeitz from TT Racing. Point as they stand without drop weeks being taken into consideration is 491 points for Philippe Leber, 406 for Greg Zeitz. With drop weeks taken into account, 463 points for Philippe Leber, 406 for Greg Zeitz. I am running around trying to do the maths here, Gary. It would be, as I say, a mathematical miracle. And I actually don't think it is possible for Greg Zeitz under any circumstances to win this championship now. Because if you take drop weeks into play, then even then Philippe Leber is going to end up stronger.
Now, with drop weeks, it's a little bit of a disadvantage, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's also an advantage in the sense if you can't make a race. But with that, it may just be the unfortunate hard truth.
We'll keep the champagne on ice just in case a miracle happens. But we can say almost with certainty, congratulations to Philippe Leber for the 2019 Part 1 Championship of the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation. And we, of course, will see you, well, I won't see you in 2 weeks' time, but Gary will, along with Randy Chenna for the final round of the 2K World Cup from Suzuka. Catch that here on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. And don't forget, in a fortnight's time, you can also catch all the action from Sim Racing Expo as well. Myself, Paul Smith, Connery Maddock, 2 days of non-stop commentary. We're going to try not to kill each other. In the meanwhile, from Gary Weir and myself, Will Vincent, thank you to Iswan Balao, TrackCams22.com, as well as to our friends over at Antoine Design and also at ATVO. Presenting sponsor of the 2K World Cup is DES Simulations. As we say, thank you and good night from Watkins Glen International.